Yo, what up, guys? This is the voice of Mr. Solution. From my time check, it's 1 minute to 9:20. So it's 9:19 from my end. And we want to look at BTC. We start from the weekly chart, then we distill it to the 15-minute time frame. So before us here for the weekly chart, this is what BTC is telling us. We have this current support here, this current upsloping support that BTC has always respected. We saw it when it got into that. That was somewhere around the lowest it went to was around 28,796. That was a couple of weeks back. That was precisely on the 21st of June 2021. BTC dropped to that low, and from then it went back up, then came back again to retest that same support. The lowest it dropped there, the lowest it dropped at that zone was 32,837, and this happened precisely on 24th of January 2020. So what it means is that this is actually a current support that BTC is always respecting. But then the thing I want us to see is how it's how the general outlook is. If you look objectively, you can see that this thing is actually an uptrend. Yes, we are this is called a higher low. Yeah, this is a higher low, and BTC has actually been moving up all through this zone. Okay, it's been moving up all through the zone. So it came there, tested it, went back up, tested it back again. So the macro trend, that's the weekly chart. From the weekly charts, we can all see that the macro trend is up. Yeah, BTC is up. We can only say that BTC is going down when this very support, this very upsloping support has been defeated, and perchance it gets defeated, we might be expecting BTC to, the next likely support should be somewhere around here. This is the next likely support, 24,289. I wouldn't really say that it's not possible to happen, because experience has taught me never to talk about the market in absolute terms. You need to be very careful with your choice of words and all that, because anything can always happen. This is a very, very volatile market. Anything can always happen. So we are seeing this support here. So if there is any time BTC if decides to break below these current supports we have here, so we should be expecting that the next support should be somewhere around there. But that's not to say that it will happen, because generally I just feel that BTC has grown past the level where we'll be seeing a series of, where we be plunged into that year-long bearish market and all that. We'll be having a couple of corrections. Yes, there'll be a couple of corrections, but then for BTC to be plunged into those yearly the series of downtrends and all that, I think it's really near impossible for such a thing to happen. Yeah, it's near impossible. But that doesn't mean we won't be having a couple of downtrends and all that. So that's what the weekly is telling us. Okay, from the weekly, of course, when you look at this series of candles now forming on the weekly. So what it means is that the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for the past 5 weeks, that's over a month now, BTC has actually been in a downtrend. BTC has actually been going down. But we have these supports here. We have these supports here that is holding it. So hopefully it doesn't break below that. But that's just what weekly is telling us. From weekly, we move to other time frames. Let's move to the daily to see what the daily has in store for us. Here we have the daily chart. This is the daily BTC chart. And then there is something, when we did the last BTC analysis we did, where we used the 200-day exponential moving average. So we're going to pull it up again to see how far, when we saw this, when we first pulled up this EMA 200, that exponential moving average 200, BTC hadn't crossed above it then. So we are saying that we would only flip bullish when BTC crosses above the 200-day moving average. And of course it did that, but fortunately it couldn't sustain the tempo. Instead it went above it, then there was a rejection, and from then BTC has actually been going down. And then if you look back on the chart, you see that there was a time something of that nature happened, and this was here, this was around 21st December 2021, where BTC crossed above the 200-day EMA, and then but then couldn't sustain the tempo, couldn't keep up with it. Instead, there was a rejection, and that's what we've been suffering from that 21st December 2021 up until 26th of March 2022. BTC was trading below the 200-day EMA until 27th, where there was a flipping. It went above it, but couldn't sustain with it, couldn't keep up with it. Now it got rejected, and all this while we are seeing BTC going below, trading below the 200 days EMA. So what it means is that for us to conclusively say that yes, there is an element of bullishness in the market, we need to see BTC do what? We need to see BTC flip this 200-day EMA, and not just flipping the 200-day EMA. There is still another resistance it needs to defeat, that is here. So we can only say that yes, the BTC is 100% bullish when this 48K zone is 100% defeated. It's clearly defeated. So far, this is a series of downtrend on the daily charts. Okay, so what it means is that the trend is actually down. That's for the daily chart anyways. But remember that we said in the weekly chart that macro-wise, judging from what we are seeing, that BTC is up. Okay, we can only say BTC is not up when this very support here has been defeated, and if it does that, the next likely support is around 23K, 24K zone and all that. But so far we are with the daily chart, and daily chart is giving us this vibe of weakness. We are seeing a sign of weakness on the BTC chart, having this current resistance here, this blue shaded region. Let me remove the exponential moving average. Okay, so we have this current resistance here, and not just that, there's still another resistance we need to deal with, which is on this, then there's still the downsloping resistance. So generally for the daily charts, we can conclusively say that the trend is down. And so far we've seen BTC respect this current support. We've seen it respect this current support. It touches it, it goes up, and then there is this resistance that's always been here. It touched the resistance, came back to support, touch the support, went to touch resistance. So what I'm thinking now is that there is still 100% chance of us testing this support again. There is still 100% possibility of us testing this support, and that support is around 37K. There's still a very, very, very much possibility of us coming back to test 37K. It's very, very, very much possible. Yeah, it's pretty much possible just from what the chart is telling me. That's on the daily chart. Okay, so we have this. Another thing we need to observe is this downsloping resistance, which I've talked about, series of lower highs and series of lower high, which is a clear sign of exhaustion, so showing that BTC is actually weak. So to say, whenever it says series of lower highs and lower low, it's a sign of exhaustion. It's a sign that the market is currently weak. So we have the weakness in BTC on the daily chart. So from the daily chart, we move to the 4-hour time frame. Let's see what the 4-hour time frame has in store for us. So we have the 4-hour here. We have the 4-hour time frame here. So let's just focus on the current price action. Let's overlook what is happening, because so far we have established that this is actually a downtrend, this series of lower highs. So for us to say yes, things have changed, BTC needs to cross above 48K. So let's forget about that one and focus on what is currently happening now. And what are we seeing here on the 4-hour chart? We still see the same thing. We see this downsloping support here, and then there's still downsloping resistance. Then we have the major resistance, which is this upsloping white line, which at a point served as a support, but right now is serving as a resistance. So we have this upsloping resistance, which is the white line. So BTC right now has a lot of fights, to go through, has a lot of things to contend with, a lot of resistances to contend with. Firstly, they need to defeat this very downsloping resistance. Now there is this horizontal resistance it needs to crush. There is still another upsloping resistance before we start talking about this macro resistance, that's this blue shaded region. So because of all these forces are against BTC, it makes sense to say that this trend is down. The trend is down. Okay, the trend is down, and perchance BTC happens to, break below this support, perchance BTC breaks below this support, so it means that there is still another likelihood of us retesting this very region. Look at it, that it once it tested it here, tested it, though it didn't really drop down to this very support. But then see what is happening here now. You are seeing this sign of weakness. So perchance BTC couldn't keep up with the tempo, and then the selling pressure increases. So what it means is that we might likely see BTC coming back to test this shaded zone, this black zone here. So there is still a tendency of BTC coming back to retest this zone here. That's for the 4-hour chart. We might see BTC coming back to retest. That's 34K actually. We might see BTC back to 34K. That's if this support is defeated. If this support doesn't hold, you might likely see BTC coming back to this 34K, this current zone. Now we have this line that we've identified. Let me use white so that you can clearly see it. Okay, so there's still a possibility of BTC testing this 34K, but that's only if this support is broken. So it needs to break this down sloping support, and then it needs to break below this current horizontal support that we have here. So that's basically what we have on the 4-hour, which equally shows us a sign of weakness. So from the 4-hour, we move to the 1-hour chart to also see what the 1-hour chart is telling us. Yeah, so we have the 1-hour chart. This is our 1-hour. Of course, it's just, this is as clear as the sky. It's as clear as the sky. We've already seen what is happening here, that this is already in a downtrend. We have this downtrend here. Forget about the fake outs, this couple of fake outs we've had. So it's actually down. It's actually down. This is showing us a sign of weakness. Okay, but then we have this down sloping support that BTC has always respected it here, and then we don't really know what is happening, what is going to happen, because it hasn't really touched it so far. So we don't really know what will happen. But like we said in the previous chart, that there is a possibility of BTC coming back to 37K. But we can see that clearly when we go to the 15-minute time frame. That is the chart that will give us a clear cut view of what BTC will do in a couple of hours or days, so to say. All right. So for the 1-hour chart, the trend is down. Yes, the trend is down. You see this series of lower highs and then series of lower lows, which is what a sign of exhaustion, a sign of weakness. So from the 1-hour, let's also go to the final time frame we'll be examining, which is the 15-minute chart, Okay. Now I want us to see something. I want us to see that there's a particular chart pattern that is being formed here. And then I'm going to show that, and then you decide what will happen. You'll be the one to make the decision yourself, what will happen. Okay. I might change my mind and give us the expo on that. Okay. So we have this here. We have this chart pattern here. We have this chart pattern here, which has a name. Yeah, it has a name. This chart pattern has a name. So for me to make it more obvious to you, I will have to bring it out clearly. Okay, this is a chart pattern, and this chart pattern has a name. You just need to say the name in your mind if you know it. But I will still let us know what it is called. All right. If you know it, say it in your mind. Now, this is called a pennant. This is a bear pennant. It's a bear pennant because the preceding trend was down, like it was going down before this pennant. This is called a pennant. So the pennant started happening from this very point. So the preceding trend was down before the formation of this pennant, and is actually a sign of weakness. And you can see here that according to textbook, from textbooks, okay, textbook says that whenever a pennant is formed, whenever we see a pennant, let me zoom the chart so that I can see it clearly. Let me expand the chart so that I can see clearly. Whenever a pennant is formed, a bearish pennant, there is a drop is expected, and then the length of the drop can be estimated by checking the distance between where the downtrend started forming to the point where the pennant started forming. Okay, the distance where the downtrend started forming to the point where the pennant started forming. Now this is where the drop started happening. This is where the pennant started happening. Now take that distance, take it to the point where the breakout would occur. Okay, so that distance will give you the projected level where BTC will drop to. So if we should go by this textbook definition or this textbook rule, we are expecting BTC to retest 36K. We're expecting BTC to retest 36K. This is for the textbook, but as a rule, I like to be objective. I like to play and trade what I can see from the chart. I like to trade what is before me and not what textbook is saying. So that being the case, if I was to take a short here, if I was to short BTC, of course, I would be expecting, just as I at said, I would be expecting somewhere around this 37K zone. This is where I would be putting my target. This is where I'll be leaving my target. It doesn't mean that BTC wouldn't get here. It doesn't mean that from the rule of pennants and all that, okay, it doesn't mean that BTC won't get here, but then I just need to be very minimalistic. I need to be very cautious in terms of risk and expectations and all that. Okay, so I'll probably take my 80% of my profits here and then leave the rest to see whether it definitely plays out and gets to 36K. Okay, so that's just basically what the chart is saying. Started from the weekly, we saw that generally, yes, from the macro trend, BTC is still up, judging from the series of higher lows we saw. Okay, so we can say that from the macro trend, BTC is actually up. That's the macro wise, the monthly and the rest of BTC is up. But then if we should distill it down to the lower time frames, we can see that BTC is actually down. BTC is still going down. Of course, those of us who are trading, who are constantly trading BTC and all that, we really do not have any business to do with the monthly and all that, because we want to trade in the now. We want to trade what is happening. So we can leave the macro trend for those investors and hedge and institutional traders and all that. Okay, so we focus on what from daily to the current 15-minute, focus on what is telling us, and that will guide us on what to trade. Okay, so like we've rightly said that we're expecting BTC to retest 37K. I'm not speaking in absolutes. These are just probabilities. As I always say, nothing is cast in stone. There is no rules to. There is no hard and fast rule to this. Anything can always happen. All right, guys. So that's just the little thing I want us to do this morning. I hope you've been educated. I hope you've been enlightened. And if you like my content, hit the subscribe button, share the video to your friends, and then I will talk to you soon. I remain your man, Mr. X to the O to the L to the U to the Sean, Mr. Solution.